Good day, class. Welcome to SPM 3551, Issues in Sports. Okay. Named Dr. Kays. I'll be your instructor for this particular session in this class. Hopefully you had an opportunity to look at the syllabus, review week one. I apologize, I just opened it this morning. So you should be able to get into that week one material. Check it out, make sure everything's good to go. First thing I like to say is, if you have any issues going on in your life or any problems that are prohibiting you from completing the work in this course, please stay in contact with me, communicate that with me so we can stay ahead of these issues and let it not affect your grade at the end of the session, okay? If I don't know about it, then I can't really do anything. I can't really assist you in any way. So the key is to stay in communication with me, get your work done, get it submitted, okay? As a rule, after a week, following the week that the work was due, I will not be accepting late work, okay? So if you're in week 3 and you didn't do week 1, that's out of, it's too late then, all right? So the only thing you have to do is week 2 and 3. If you haven't done them as of yet, right? So just as an example, okay, nothing, we haven't got to that point yet, just week 1, first day. So hopefully everyone stays on top of the schedule. I understand you guys are juggling many things, including life, playing sports, seasons, for a lot of you are still going. And so I understand that, all right? But make sure you stay on top of your work. This is not a difficult class. You just have to, use a little time management. And if you get behind or something happens, let me know and we'll try to work through those things, okay? As I said, make sure you check out the syllabus, make sure you look at all the deliverables that are due as far as the midterm and the final paper or final projects and that kind of thing, okay? Looking forward to an interesting class. And as I said before, please stay in communication with me. All my contact info is on the syllabus. And also on the portal in my bio. All right. So with that, let's move on. So first thing, we're going to talk about managing sports, right? So of course, sports in our society is a big deal. That's how many people connect and the world kind of comes together to celebrate athletes and that kind of thing, right? It not only provides a sense of recreation or a place to be, relieve stress or be part of a community, but also it's a business, right? Generates large amounts of revenue. There's many aspects to sports management, not just the sport itself, right? Not just the athletes themselves, right? There's marketing, there's the psychological part of sports, there's the, the fan side of sports. So there's many aspects to sports and how they get managed, right? And who moves up the rung if you are not an athlete, and how does that all happen on the side, right? Okay. So we're looking at different sports management programs throughout the world, right? And we can kind of see, who has the more, not more intense, but, who's really like kind of ingratiated into sports management as far as a discipline and making sure that, that particular aspect of our lives has experts in it that can help steer it in the right direction, right? And you can see the United States is leaded by a long stretch of countries that has, degrees dedicated to, sports management, okay? In addition, we're one of the few countries, as you can tell, that integrates sports and academics, right? Most countries, they separate the two. You're either going to school and you're playing club ball, or you're playing club ball, you're playing professional, you're going to school on your off time and that kind of thing, right? United States is one of the few countries that does it where you go to, you play sports throughout, high school, throughout college, and you at the same time juggling academics as you can, as you're currently involved in right now yourselves, okay? So long way for everybody else to catch up, we have 760 total programs from bachelor's to doctorate that involve some kind of sports management. Okay, so we're well ahead of the curve, and it's evident in most of our sports, right? Because United States dominates in most sports globally speaking. So that's because we have, majority of the athletes that come over from other countries to play in the United States and to be involved in the management of sports. We pay the most money, have the most opportunity, and typically have the best athletes, depending on which sport it is for the most part. So the competition level is extremely high and rigorous, and those that make it to the top are usually the best of the best in the world. All right, so we're going to look at sport defined, sport management defined, sport versus sports, and management versus administration. Okay, so there's different types of sports, right? Looking at golf and tennis and as compared to basketball, football, or soccer, right? There's individual sports, and then there's just team sports, right? And so you have to kind of look at those different aspects and how those get managed, right? Because it's different managing yourself or one person as compared to managing 70 people, okay? And what that takes to make sure that everyone gets what they're supposed to get, and how does each team work to make sure that the organization is successful and the team is successful, and how that contributes to the community and society at large. Excuse me. Having a wide range of sports adds diversity to sporting opportunities that are available to consumers, right? People have a large assortment of sports to choose from that they can engage in and also watch and participate in. And you have to really understand there's some sports that aren't necessarily highlighted or very popular, but have been around for a long time. And say for instance cricket, or equestrian, horse riding. Those things have been around for centuries. But they're not really highly publicized because not everybody can do them because they're expensive, and many times they're associated with the countries, so that country's national sport, or that's their pastime. In many instances, due to economic situations and the inability to access the resources needed for certain sports. All right. So we look at some of the setting for sporting activities, right? We have single, multi, and college sports. Okay. We have the media, we got sports sponsors, facilities, manufacturer, retailers, events, meetings, and trade shows. So we have all these things that kind of go into the sport industry. Okay. And depending which area you're in, will kind of push you, or have you set to a certain guideline or understanding of how the business works. Okay. As an athlete, you're mostly concerned with your performance on the court or on the field or on the pitch, right? But you also have to be cognizant of the business side of the house, right? Because if you get traded, or you see a trade happening, or some things happening behind the scenes, that's all business. There's nothing to do with necessarily always the athletes athletes skill set, or athletes talent. A lot of times it has to do with what's the best thing for the organization. How can I maximize this resource that I have, right? Because you have to think of it in terms of resource as a person, right? Each individual player is a resource for the company, and so you have to think of it in that way, right? And what other things can we get into? Okay, so there's different types of models of sport industry, right? There's product type model, economic impact model, sports activity model, and contemporary sports management, sport industry sectors model. Okay, so we'll go into each one of these. All right. So as you can tell, when you look at the CSS sports industry sectors model, right, you have your public sector, your nonprofit sector, and your commercial sector. Okay. And so in your public sector, You have more of a federal government, more of not the politically charged, but definitely sponsored more by the state, right? More by the city, right? So local funds, taxes pay for certain things. And the whole plan is to really create programs and plans that children can get into, that are paid for by the taxpayers, that will allow them to participate in sports, pay for the facilities and that kind of thing. Okay. You have your nonprofit sector, okay? So you have your national sports organizations, your local sports organizations, school sports, right? Physical education, all right? So that and public sector kind of tie hand in hand, depending on, what school you go to, right? Do you go to public school? Do you go to private school? It all depends, right? So you have your college university sports, that kind of thing, right? Then you have your commercial sector where this is where, kind of the big bucks come in, where the money comes in, where really it's private. There are individual entities that control these particular organizations. And this is where the real business of sports happens, right? Trading of players, the drafting of players, the grooming of players, right? For the team later on down the line, you know, the big media, profile, all the social media, all those things that go, as far as sponsorship, all those things are in the commercial sector and are really amplified at that point. Okay. So there's different aspects that are unique to sports management. You have your sport marketing, your sport enterprise financial structure, sport industry career path, and sport as a social institution. Right. So let's look at some of the clusters, the task clusters. Okay. So when you're talking about managing sports, you have your organization management, your community management, you have your general tasks that you have to make sure that everything's good to go, right? So if you are part of the organization, just like any organization, you have to worry about budgeting. You have to worry about the personnel, right? You have to have HR. You got to have operations. You got to have people that are doing data analytics and that kind of thing, right? Because it's still a company. Still, people are working for the organization, so you have to keep that in mind. Then you have your general sports management tasks, right? Record keeping, correspondence, marketing and sales, public speaking, community relation. And these things are things that both the athlete and people that are working within the organization do, right? Because as an athlete, you may have to do some community relations things, public speaking, at a camp or something like that, right? Correspondence, as far as between you and the fans, and or the company and the fans, right? Excuse me. Communication management, this is where we really are talking about with the advertising, the marketing, and keeping in contact with the social media or with media in general, to making sure that we stay relevant in the public eye. All right. So what is our communication strategy, right? How are we going to convey ourselves to the outside world, right? What do we want to stand for? When people see the brand and they see the athletes that represent that brand, what do they think of, right? And all that is, kind of built up from the different media aspects, right? How the athlete, organization handle social media. How do they do in interviews, right? Or is the management open to interviews? Are they open to being transparent and talking about those things that are going on behind the scenes, as long as they don't affect some other things down the road, right? We have some things that, internally that we need to discuss that are going to have an impact on other teams, or the association, or the whole organization, the whole system as a altogether. And so we may not want to talk about those things because those are internal or proprietary information, right? Or intellectual property, however you want to phrase it, right? But just things that there's certain things we just don't always talk about because they're not necessary. But our communication strategy should be that, so that we have an open pipeline to the media, they have a pipeline to us, and we work in that relationship together to create a positive brand, right? Create a positive image to the community, right? And then also how to manage the athletes, especially in these days and times with social media and the speed at which news travels, right? And how quickly someone's reputation can be tarnished, And certain things can be associated with people that, and it really is not the entire truth. Okay. All right. Some competencies, all right. There's some things that you need if you're trying to be in sports manager, right? If you're trying to be administrator, trying to be a GM or assistant coach or that, that kind of thing, right? Um, all right. So you have to become a critical thinker. Okay. You have to think outside the box. Okay. You have to be able to be open to different ideas and different ways of thinking about things because you're dealing with a wide array of people, right? And you're dealing with sports as far as it evolving for the current and modern society, right? For the most part, most sports stay the same as far as the rules and that kind of thing, right? But from time to time, you'll have additions or changes or deletions of certain things because they don't apply anymore or they're irrelevant, or you have a situation in which you have to make a change that can benefit the whole sport because it's not evolving properly or it's not keeping in step with the other sports, right? Let's take, for example, for baseball. Baseball is not a fast sport, but at the same time, it's a national pastime for many countries, and it's one of the one of the sports that's been around the longest, and people love baseball. But it has moments where it has lulls, right? It can become boring, becomes monotonous. So in order to speed the game up, certain things have been put in place, right? To speed the game up to make it more exciting for the fan, right? Basketball, you have players that come in that change the game. Shaquille O'Neal, Wilt Chamberlain, even as current as Stephen Curry, someone who changed the game in a way that you have to start to think about changing rules and changing the dimensions of a particular uh, of the field or the court, or and just trying to make sure the game evolves. Because if there's one Stephen Curry now, there'll be two or three, four, five down the road, and the game will start to change, right? And I speak about basketball because I'm already familiar with basketball. When I played, we could hand check, and the hand checking is just the aspect of being able to put your hand on the offensive player to kind of keep them at bay, right? To keep them in front of you, sort of, right? And so it made it harder to get around somebody when you're trying to get to score a basket. Nowadays, you really can't hand check. You can't put your hands on the offensive player as a defensive player. You have to kind of just kind of step back, and you can tap them a little, but you can't keep it on there for too long, right? And so with the inability for me to hand check someone, that gives them more freedom of mobility, right? More left to right, more north to south. And it makes it easier for them to be able to get to the basket, or it makes it easier for them to incur a foul or some kind of penalty because I touched them in a way that's not legal, right? And so that's the change in the game, because that has helped to speed up the game and to increase the score of the games, right? To make it more exciting for the fan, right? And so basketball is one of those sports that's very quick paced, very active, you know, always something going on either side, right? And it's one of the sports where you have to play both sides, right? Offense and defense. And so it brings an interesting aspect to how good someone really is, when you look at the overall game. Football is a little different, where you have the old offensive player and defensive player, and individual sports are different because, of course, you're doing it all. So you got to look at it in those terms, okay? But again, trying to manage, a sports team, you have to be able to be open, have thick skin, be innovative, okay? All right. You have ephemeral social media, permanent social media, and then you have applications in the sports industry, right? And social media basically has taken over everywhere. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Social media has become the way in which we communicate with the fans, which you communicate, as far as in externally, all right. And we try to leverage social media to build our brand, right, and to repair broken relationships, and to promote, to advertise, And so you have to really have a good grasp of social media and its impact, and understanding that, social media can, destroy you 1 minute and bring you up the next. Okay. And it's not just about the organization, it's about the athletes and how they manage their social media. So you have to really, create a policy that will be applied to everyone within the organization on how do we handle social media, right? How do you get on, these platforms and convey, not really convey, just maintain your independence, but at the same time recognize that you're representing the brand, right? So it's a really tricky balancing act. Okay. The awareness of a set of interrelated critical questions, right? The ability to ask and answer critical questions in appropriate times, the desire to use those questions, accept their results as a guide to behavior, right? So when looking at critical thinking, as I said before, it's just not about, what's in front of you, as far as, the numbers. You have to really look at what you're given, what are the, economic status of our society, what is the moral and, moral compass and value system in our society, right? What people are willing to go watch and do, and then take all that and kind of put that into, how do I manage this team correctly? Okay. All right. Some critical thinking question: what are the issues and then the conclusion? What are the reasons? What words or phrases are ambiguous? What are the value conflicts and assumptions, right? So as I said before, right, it's just not about, going out there and looking at numbers and just let the talent do the talking, right? As a manager, as someone who is in the hierarchy, the executive hierarchy, making these decisions about which players to bring on, which players to leave, how do we approach the game as a whole, because in many instances, the success of any team is built on the athletes that have the pieces it has, right? And so you have to switch up approaches based on what you have, right? Do I have to get the right coach? I have to get the right training staff. I have to get the right system around certain players, right? That if I'm going to build my team around certain players, how do I do that, right? Do I need to bring a certain individual in that's going to be the one that is an advocate for the system, who is the pioneer to the system and its work, and we want that attitude, right? That's also another thing, right? That you have to think about the personalities of the people that are coming in and how they jive with the organization and the players, right? And so that is a really important aspect of managing any team, right? All right. So what are descriptive assumptions? Does the reasoning contain fallacies? How good is the evidence, and what significant information is omitted, right? So these for me are really all statistical questions, right? On the surface, what demographic are you dealing with, right? And what connotations are you dealing with, right? Whereas, you think about, again, basketball has a high percentage of African Americans in it, right? And used to be mostly domestic, right? Used to be people that came through our system, right? High school, grassroots systems, as far as for those that know AAU, Amateur Athletic Union, or PAL, Police Athletic League, or some of these other um, you know um, organizations that were early predecessors of what we have now in sports, right? We have an abundance of different teams that are traveling and bring the kids in, right? But we have a system in which we grow our athletes from starting from elementary school, high school, into college, and into the professional ranks if they are that good. Okay. And so with that comes certain assumptions, right? That, because what I see on the surface, each sport has its own kind of thing where there's assumptions based on the demographic. All right. All right. So some challenges and opportunities that we're going to look at in the future, right? Technology. And technology is one of those things where, it's already impacted everything around us, right? But it's continuing to impact sports and will change sports in different ways, right? On the one sense, technology is great from a training standpoint, because if you have, the newest technology, you can look at, a lot of different things from your, your body posture, the way you move, the way you run, all based off of, some artificial intelligence, machine learning aspects, right? When we look at, image segmentation, and we can see, how people move, with kinesiology, biometric, there's different things that technology does to help us improve our athletic, prowess. And so the question is, does the organization, you know, um, contribute, or does the organization, have that technology, and are they going out to buy it to give it to the athletes so they can get better? Okay. We have an advancement in medical technology, right? Where, injuries are no longer, the cause of sustained or long-term, inability to play, right? People heal faster because we have better medicine. We have better surgeons. We have better techniques on how to fix people, how to fix certain body parts that are susceptible to sports, right? Anything for the most part, any joint related issues, muscle tendon related issues, right? We have a pretty good understanding of how the body works in those aspects. Any sport deals with its own individual, type of ailments, right? Ethics and social responsibility, big deal, and especially in light of social media and how quickly things can get out of hand, and that in one moment, lapse of judgment can really, destroy a career for a while, or put you in a chaotic situation for a while, not only as an individual, but as an entity. Okay. So ethics is important. The inability to, I should say, the ability to curtail cheating as far as goes, as far as it relates to steroids and, performance enhancement drugs and those kind of things, or people cheating in different aspects, via technology, right? Be able to control some way, or something within the game, and being able to control that. And also, from an organizational level, coaching staff, executive staff, making sure that they, follow the rules and play fair, right? And the social responsibility. Make sure we contribute back to the community. Okay, make sure we give back to the community that we're in. Make sure we go back to the elementary schools and the high schools, and promote good sportsmanship, and let the children know, hey, you can make it. It just takes a lot of hard work, but to also be realistic with them, and then know that, hey, only a few people really make it to the top, right? And less than 1% of people will go on to the professional ranks, right? To be, and when I say professional, I mean getting paid to do what it is you do. Okay, be able to make a living off of it. Right? Not many people are able to do that, and so not from a sports aspect. So if you can, is amazing, right? But I know a lot of great basketball players, NBA talent, that are not in the NBA, because it's not just about the talent, the other circumstances that are involved with that, right? Um, and so you have to, be able to manage those things, and the organization needs to be responsible to the community that they're in, to make sure that they are good stewards of the resources that they've been given, and that they can give back and contribute to the growth of, that society. All right. Then there's globalization of sport. All right. So, I think soccer or football is the most popular sport in the world, right? But again, if we come back to the United States, it's just now getting into the limelight of being one of the sports, to be involved in, right? For the United States, it's typically basketball, football, or baseball. Okay, that's how it was when I grew up. But now we're having more sports come out as far as being global, because now we're getting athletes from everywhere, right? Even basketball, we are venturing off into different countries, right? We play games in different countries and trying to get some interest in that sport in different countries, right? We have football. They play, games overseas now, right? 1 or 2 games out of the season when American football, right? Soccer's always been, international football has always been a global sport, okay? Tennis has always been a global sport. Golf has always been a global sport, right? If you look at the rankings and how people fit in, how the athletes fit in, it's always on a global level. Now, there is a domestic aspect to it, but that feeds into the global system, okay? And those points get associated based on all the different things. Formula One, all right, race car driving, that's a global venture, okay? So different sports, from different places that are coming into their own. And as we become, more globalized, sports will become more globalized as well, because now more people are going to get an opportunity to showcase their skills and their talent, and we'll get more exposure to different types of sports. So some guidelines for making ethical decisions: recognize the ethical issue, get the facts, evaluate alternative actions, make a decision and test it, act and reflect on the outcome, right? And so again, you want to make sure that when you're looking at your ethical stance, right, it really is dependent on your own ethics and your own moral compass, right? And what it is that you're really looking for. You're looking for to make sure that the greater good is served, or you're looking for yourself as an individual to be served, right? That is really kind of the approach a lot of ethics takes, right? Because most ethical issues and most ethical dilemmas people are involved in usually means them sacrificing something for themselves so that the greater good can benefit. And when you have an ethical situation where someone has violated the ethics of a particular organization, or broken the rules in some way that's unethical, it's usually something that they've done for themselves, right? They've been selfish, and it's in some gratification that they receive, and it's caused harm to the organization, to the athletes, to themselves, and in general, just has not been a good thing. Okay. So now we're going to look at developing professional perspective. All right. So when you look at, trying to get into the field and trying to understand how, what it takes to manage sports, right? You need your general education, right? Just, math, what do you say, reading, arithmetic, right? And science, right? Just to understand basics of just basically life education. Okay. You need to be able to add, you need to be able to read, you need to be able to, understand simple concepts as far as science goes. Okay. There's major courses in sports management, right? There's bigger courses and more advanced information out there, but as depending on which level you're going to and how involved you want to be, those things come down the line, right? Co-curricular activities, right? Those things that go hand in hand with you trying to understand, hey, I'm going to school, but I'm also managing a sports team, right? I'm the high school football team manager, right? I may be the equipment manager, or I may be part of the training staff, or whatever the case may be, right? You have your specialized training, right? Those people that are specifically, there to make sure the athletes are in peak condition, right? Strength and conditioning coaches, therapists, rehab specialists, occupational specialists. All those folks have specialized training that, you need to make sure that you have on your staff, right? But they have to go to school too, okay? All of us have to go to school and learn and get on experience, right? Through, working organizations. So you may start at the bottom and then work your way up to certain levels, okay? Field experience, okay? Again, being part of an organization and getting that information or getting that talent, it's a big deal. And then you have advanced education. Those that go on, to get bachelor's, master's, or doctorates in sports management, right, tend to move up the ranks and become senior executives, presidents, COO, general managers, those kind of things. All right. So again, You don't necessarily need to have a degree to do those things if you have the experience. And, there have been cases where athletes have transitioned from being athletes into the administration or the executive side of the house or the management side of the house and done well, and others have not done well, right? And there's some non-athletes, or at least that haven't, at least athletes that haven't participated on a professional level, that are in executive and management positions and are excelling and have done well, right? But for the most part, most executives or managers have had some, you know, um, some involvement in sports from their early childhood, right? They've been involved in sports after they played it. They loved doing it. They just weren't that great, and they couldn't make it to the next level. And they still play recreationally, right? Still play for fun. Okay, so those things are all still around, right? You got your professional attitude, right? You have to come to work dressed for the part, right? You have to, present yourself in a certain way, right? I'm not saying you got to wear a suit every day and that kind of thing. It's about your presentation, how you carry yourself, how you speak to people, how you look, how you take care of your own, your own body, and making sure that you walk your talk, sort of. Okay. You have your adjustment to the workplace, right? Again, dealing with different personalities, you're going to have to be able to, be sort of a chameleon, sort of, right? And be able to shift and say, I'm talking to, person A in this way, I'm talking to person B, I'm talking to my boss, I'm talking to someone that works for me, I'm talking to someone, on the same level. I'm talking to athletes. I'm talking, there's different ways in which you have to approach how you operate in the workplace, right? And then straight up business etiquette, right? The ability to be transparent with, everyone in the organization, and to have fair dealings and being able to say, hey, we have to make this particular move and this is why, right? We're going to do this deal because this is it, and for it not to be a surprise to athletes or to personnel, right? Nothing worse than finding out something's happening to you from the news and not from the people that you work for, right? Or work with. Okay. Back to ethical decision making, right? We have explicit norms, implicit norms, right? Explicit norms are just those things that we as a society, we all kind of understand and know, right? They're out there in the front. They're either written or they're known to be just that, right? Then we have implicit norms. Those are just more like norms where they're not spoken per se, but they're understood. Okay. If I shake your hand, I'm implying that we have a deal, or that we're going to be dealing in fair dealings, right? And we're going to be upfront and not screw each other over, right? And so there's different types of norms, right? And when it comes to ethical decision making, each particular sport has its norm. Okay. So in basketball, it's not normal to necessarily punch someone or to run somebody over or to, I don't know, behave in certain ways, right? Whereas in football, American football, right, you're supposed to run people over. You're supposed to smash them. You're supposed to, kind of, you know, just demean them in certain ways physically, right? Because that's part of the game, right? Those are norms. What's normal in one game or one particular organization is not normal in another game, right? So certain actions that occur on and off the field, those becomes norms for those particular sports, and people understand that. So there's no, no one's going to look at you funny. Whereas if you do it in another sport, then things start to get strange, right? In the world of I don't know, cricket or something like that, or even baseball, where you don't do certain things, or basketball, where you don't run the score up, once the game is about to end, right? You don't, try to keep scoring, right? You kind of just play the ball out and let the time run out, right? Ethical dilemmas are definitely going to, be part of the daily routine. And again, critical thinking skills, all right? When you look at your professional brand, you're looking at your grooming, attire, and accessories, your posture, social media, right? How is your brand being represented to the public, right? how do people look? How do your executives look? How do your athletes look? How did your staff look? How does, support staff look? How they carry themselves? What are they saying on social media? How can that be attributed to the organization? What actions are they doing after work? All those things roll into the professional brand, right? It's a 24/7 approach, right? It's 24/7 mindset. You have to understand, especially now in these days and time, everything you do is going to be scrutinized. Everything you do is going to be associated with your organization and how you behave, right? And so if you do it this way, it's going to be an assumption that the organization is doing it that way also. Or what is the organization doing about your behavior? When in many aspects, people's personal behavior is just that. They're personal. They're not to be necessarily discussed out in public, and that's how they operate. But unfortunately, that's not how the world goes, right? If someone within the organization is behaving a certain way and it's not part of the norms or acceptable in our society, then the organization is expected to, address the particular incident in a certain way also. All right. When you're trying to, get in there and figure out what is my place in, sports management, right? You got to learn your job, right? And that goes for any job, doesn't matter, right? You have to know your job, right? You have to understand organizational culture, right? Demonstrate your work ethic, okay, whatever that may be. Hopefully, it's a strong work ethic where you stay till the task is completed. You make sure it's done to the best of your ability, right? Because that's really going to speak volumes for you, right? Words are one thing, actions are a different thing. Okay. If I see, what you're doing, that's going to override what you're saying to me. Okay. Because I can see it. It's tangible and it's affecting me. And I can see that you are a hard worker, or I can see that you put the time in, or I can see that you understand the people and what's going on. That's going to, be a bit easier for me to digest than you saying things and not really following up, with your word, right? Because the sports world, any athlete that's made it and successful at any level, really, it's a lot of commitment, it's a lot of hard work, and those that you know make it to the top sacrifice a lot, right? Sacrifice family time, they sacrifice personal time, they sacrifice a lot of things, but in return, they get a lot of accolades, they get a lot of reward, they get all the things that come with being a great athlete, and they understand that, right? It's a conscious choice that they're making. Same thing with the sports, sports management executives, staff spend long hours, days and nights away from their family, sacrificing their personal time in order to make sure that the organization runs properly and to make sure that athletes are taken care of. Okay. Develop your written communication skills. Very important and undervalued and understated. Right. The way you communicate is going to say a lot to other people about you. Right. So it's imperative that you learn how to write properly. Right. How to form proper sentences. How to write a proper email. Right. Appropriate salutation. Right. Get to the point. Okay. Not to be elaborate and verbose in your speech. Understanding that different situations require different writing styles, right? Different communication styles, right? And so you have to really develop those particular skill sets, and that's a lifelong endeavor. So don't be remiss if you don't get it the first time, or it's practice and it's not coming easy. It doesn't come easy. You have to work on that. Communication is one of those things that you can work on for the rest of your life and become proficient at it, right? But it takes work, right? Use electronic communication appropriately, as I said, emails and that kind of thing, social media, and then thank others, right? Because you have to make sure that you acknowledge the work of others because you didn't get here by yourself, right? As much as you may think that it was all you and you made it there by yourself, you didn't, okay? And so you have to make sure that you thank others and that people understand that you acknowledge their contribution to who you are. All right, it's going to go a long way, especially once you're, if you're an athlete. Once your athletic days are over and you want to run into or get into management and being part of the staff and that kind of thing, people remember how you treated them, right? People remember how you behaved. Um, and if you were someone who was open to, acknowledging people's, good work or efforts in making you better, right? Embrace diversity. Again, one of the big things, right? There's no color in sports, right? It doesn't matter where you're from. If you're good at the sport, you're good at it. If you're a good manager, you're a good manager. If you're a good leader, you're a good leader. It has nothing to do with your ethnicity or your race or anything like that. Okay. Um, so you want to make sure you have a diverse organization, and you'll make sure that you embrace diversity, because you may be missing out on the next best thing, if you don't understand that this person, whoever he or she is, brings a special skill set to the staff, to the organization, and that it will enhance overall that organization in a positive way. Okay. Assess performance to improve and commit to your professional development. All right. And these are all individual, not all of them, but some are individual tasks that you have to take on, right, to become better. Right. In many people's lives, their whole purpose is to be better, to be a better person. Every day I wake up, I want to be a better person than I was yesterday. All right. I want to treat people better than I did yesterday. I want to be kind. I want to be more understanding. I want to be more informed. I want to be more knowledgeable. I just want to be better overall. Right. Now, physically, as we get older, we get worse, right? Depending on what sport it is or what we're doing. But we can still contribute in positive ways by passing on our knowledge, right? And as you pass on your knowledge, you become better as a person, because now you're teaching, right? Someone is looking up to you. Someone is looking to you for what's the word I'm looking for? Recognition, right? They're looking to you for acknowledgement. They're looking to you for their your approval of how well they're doing. Okay. So it's important that you look to always develop yourself and become the best person that you can be. All right. So let's jump into some business etiquette. All right. How you communicate on the telephone, or the voicemails that you leave, or your language, or how you participate in meetings, right? All those things, you know, contribute to how people view you and your business etiquette, and how you portray the organization and its way of doing business. Okay. Returning phone calls in a timely manner, right? Not being, vulgar or cursing people out on the telephone, not leaving, you know, uh, unnecessary voicemails, being able to speak, well, and being articulate in your speech, and also being able to speak, if possible, more than one language. That always helps. Okay. How you run meetings, right? And how you participate in meetings. Are you a meeting hog where you talk the whole time and you don't let anyone, interject, right? Um, Depending on your role in the meeting, you, as someone who's receiving information from your staff, you shouldn't have too much to say, because you're there in listening mode. Okay. You're there to listen to each particular person who's running or managing the different aspects of your staff, right? And listen to what they say, and listen to what they need to make certain things happen that you have dictated. Okay. The goals and the mission that they're trying to achieve are things that you have put out there, saying these are the things that I'm trying to do. These are the things that we need to do as an organization and staff, or as a department. And so I'm charging you with getting those things done. What do you need from me as a leader? All right. What do you need from me as a manager? And making sure that they get those things, and listening to them, and and giving them acknowledgement and praise when necessary, but also counseling when necessary, and remedial, instruction. All right. Okay. Now we get to some other things, right? Dining etiquette, international experiences, introduction and greetings, office etiquette, and romantic relationships, right? So dining etiquette, depending again, what form it's in, all right? As you start to get higher and higher in the echelon of sports management, you're going to be dealing with different types of folks, right? from dignitaries all the way down to, local politicians or businessmen. You're going to many events, and how understanding how to eat and how, in a formal setting is important. How do I, manage myself in a international space, right? Understanding the customs and the courtesies of the particular place, right? Introduction and greetings. How do I greet people and how do I interact with people in different countries, of different genders, of different nationalities, of different, different languages, different sport. There's a lot of things that go into it, right? Office etiquette, of course. How I treat people at work, how I am viewed at work, right? How I make sure, I have an open door policy. I treat everyone fairly. There are no favorites. Yes, I may get along more with one person than the other person, but when it comes down to, the business at hand, I'm very, objective and impartial, right? It's just about trying to figure out what's going on. Let's fix the problem and move on, right? Romantic relationships, that's another thing in the workplace, that, each organization has their own rules, but really frowned upon, just because we don't necessarily want people coming to work, and being angry at each other because of their relationship, that argument, and they bring that stuff to work. How you manage that is a big, big deal. And so if you're going to, involve yourself in that, you have to make sure that you can separate the two. When you're at work, you're at work. When you're at home on your personal time, you're on your personal time, and you don't let the two just kind of bleed into each other in a bad way, right? Even if it's like an argument or too much, displays of public affection that make people uncomfortable, that kind of thing, right? Or if you're married and you're involved in a relationship at work, that's not good. So there's many aspects to that, and each industry, or each, I don't say each team, or each association, each club, they have their rules, but for the most part they're the same in general, right? They just want to make sure there's harmony, within the organization, and that relationships are not causing a strain, within the company. All right. So career planning and management, we have some career decision steps, some values, some interests and skills, right? When you're looking at, what it is that you want to do, right? You have to really look at who you are as a person and what are those things that you like and what do you bring to the table, right? Are you good at certain things that would be a value added to a company in this particular area, right? So for me, I've always thought about, applying to certain jobs in NBA, specifically like data analytics and, like, the kind of the more of the analysis side of the house, right? Play evaluation, that kind of thing, right? That's where where my skill set lies. And it still keeps me connected to the game and to the players, and allows me to add something to the organization, right? So when you look at how you want to move up, and get involved as far as sports management, you have to look at those things, right? Career decision steps, as I said before, self-assessment, research and occupational exploration, career decision making, career search, and reevaluation, right? Because as you get in and you get into a certain position, you may not necessarily like that position, and it may not be well suited for you. So you may make a lateral move to something else, or go into different sports altogether, and learn something new, and then come back, or decide that I want to be on this side of the fence when it comes to sport and not this particular side. Or you may not want to deal with the players. You may want to deal strictly with the things that are not play related, right? Or you may want to deal directly with player issues. Okay, and so you have to really look at what are those things that work for you. Okay. When you look at occupational exploration, gather extensive information about occupations you want to consider. Make decisions that align your values, interests, skills, and personality with your occupational choice. Extremely important aspect of that, right? In the nature of the work, the setting and conditions, the earnings, employment outlook, and competition, right? Because most jobs within the sports management realm require a lot of time, right? A lot of commitment, because you're gone, in many instances, you're gone a lot. And again, depending on which side of the fence you're in, right? If you're part of the staff and not necessarily involved in any play operations and that kind of thing, you're probably not going to be moving too much, right? If you're on the data analytics side or you're the marketing side, you're not going to be traveling as much as you're actually involved in the athletic or the player personnel side, okay, and dealing with the players themselves or the athletes themselves and that kind of thing, right? But you have to look at, okay, am I earning enough money, right? Do I have the requisite educational qualification that I need to look at? What is my upward mobility, right? And can I move from one place to the next, upward, forward, right? Is it going to give me what I need? Am I satisfied with just being here and staying here for a long time? Is the environment toxic? Those kind of things, right? You have to really, kind of look at all those issues. All right. So some sources of additional information, right? You can look at online sport management career resources, computerized career assessment systems, information interviews with professionals. There's different ways to get information about what goes on within the organization and if it's a good fit for you, right? You can go talk to people that are involved in the industry. Getting to talk to an actual executive probably going to be difficult unless you have some personal connections, but it's possible, right? Anything's possible. Email, writing letters, requesting just interviews or just some, insight as to how things are actually ran and how things go with the organization is always a good thing. Okay. Going online, doing your own research on Google or whatever the case may be. That's another, way to look at it. Right. And, you have to think of, if you're at an elementary school or high school and you're managing a sports program or you're athletic director at a small school or whatever the case may be, those same issues are the same thing that happen on the higher levels and professional levels, right? It's just that they're, the exponential as far as the size of it now, right? At the college team, we're dealing with 15, athletes on the basketball team, about the same on the football team, about 50 or 60 on the football team, the golf team, tennis team, right? But you're part of an academic system, you're part of an academic institution. So there's different things that you're dealing with, right? You're dealing with the students' academics, you're dealing with the administration of the school, you're dealing with, the life, right? You're managing the student's life or the student athlete's life. So there's different things. So you can get an understanding of what it takes, on the low, as far as sports management from every level, right? It's just that as you go up, it just becomes bigger. That's all. Some other resources, right? If you want to look at different careers options in sports, right? All right. And these are all good. We're all good and give you an opportunity to look. And again, it doesn't have to be something directly related with all athletes. It could just be something that is your part of the organization. All right. As I said before, right? To be successful, critical thinking and problem solving are key. Professionalism and work ethic, teamwork, and communication skills. All those things bundled up, done well, and develop on a perpetual basis are going to elevate you within the sports management realm, and it'll get you to where you want to be. Right? Many coaches, many people in the executive world, when it comes to sports, they start off at the bottom. Right? Equipment manager, video manager, you know, uh, even as far as someone who was a part of the custodial staff, and then move their way up into certain positions in the organization to be part of the executive or sports management side of the house. All right. So with that said, this concludes this week's presentation. As I mentioned before, make sure you read the syllabus, make yourself familiar with all the requirements that you have to fulfill. Communication is key with me. All right. If you have an issue, you have a problem, whatever it is, if it's going to, have an impact on your ability to deliver your work on time and at a high level, I need to know. Okay. I understand this is a bachelor's program, but nonetheless, I expect quality work. Right. Bachelor's level is not, you're getting a bachelor's, you're getting your undergrad degree, right? It's a stepping stone if you plan on going to get your master's or your doctorate, and stepping stone just in general, just to get the job that you want, right? In addition to being an athlete and playing your sport, if that's what you're doing at the moment, right? But you have to be able to communicate your challenges to whoever it is you're dealing with so that they can help you if that's what you need, right? So stay in communication with me throughout the course so that I know what's going on with you if you have an issue, right? Um, I expect quality work. Okay. If it's shoddy work, if it's not work that I think is up to par, I'll let you know and your grade will reflect. Okay. I'm not giving anyone additional opportunities to redo work. So please don't ask. Okay. That's the whole point of doing the work and submitting it and me grading it. You get one shot. Okay. You get one opportunity to do it and do it well and submit it and get a good grade. All right. All right. So with that said, I will see you next week and have a great day and week.